Walk into almost any motorcycle dealership in America and watch the floor traffic. Buyers will walk straight past perfectly capable, affordable machines and head directly for the bikes that cost 3 times as much. They linger, they run their hands over the chrome, they stand next to them for longer than makes any practical sense for a quick browse. If we look at a brand like Royal Enfield strictly on paper, it holds a strong competitive advantage. They build mechanically solid, highly reliable motorcycles with over a century of heritage. They have hundreds of thousands of deeply loyal riders actively navigating the dense streets of India every single day. Yet in the United States, this global leader rarely registers in serious purchasing conversations. American riders largely treat it as if it belongs in an entirely separate, invisible category. A rider chooses a Royal Enfield for its utility and solid mechanics. They choose a Harley-Davidson because they want to inhabit a very specific story, one involving rebellion, the open road, and a refusal to ask for permission. This behavior suggests that for many American riders, the spec sheet is secondary to the personal meaning they attach to the machine. It highlights a market that prioritizes the story over the engineering. To understand why that story carries so much weight, we have to look at where these machines physically existed over the last 100 years. Harley was already on the roads while the country was still figuring out its modern identity. When the United States entered both world wars, Harley-Davidson went with them. These military spec vehicles carried soldiers through the defining conflicts of the 20th century. By the 1950s and 60s, those same machines returned home and morphed into symbols of rebellion. They became fixtures in the counterculture movement, appearing in road films and etching themselves into the collective memory of American independence. Royal Enfield was entirely absent from those specific cultural milestones in the United States. You genuinely cannot buy that kind of history after the fact. It either happened or it didn't, and no marketing budget can retroactively place a foreign brand into the American past. That connection extends directly into the physical design of the bikes. The Harley V-twin engine produces a deep, uneven, syncopated idle that carries its own cultural freight. It sounds less like a sequence of mechanical combustions and more like an unapologetic statement of personality. The company understood exactly how valuable that emotional trigger was. In the 1990s, Harley spent years in legal battles attempting to literally trademark that specific exhaust note as intellectual property. Even though they couldn't legally lock it down in court, the attempt highlights a sharp contrast. Royal Enfield engines produce a steady, quiet mechanical thump. It sounds like a well-oiled machine running smoothly, but it doesn't compel strangers on a sidewalk to stop mid-conversation and turn around. The specific history and the aggressive sound work together as deeply ingrained cultural status signals. They announce an attitude that a pure engineering spec sheet simply cannot replicate. This shared identity extends directly into the community structure. When someone buys a Harley, the high purchase price acts as an initiation fee into the Harley owners group, handing them immediate membership into a vast, organized social network. This membership gives riders a reason to show up on a Saturday morning, culminating in colossal annual events in places like Daytona and Sturgis that pull hundreds of thousands of people together to celebrate a shared lifestyle. Royal Enfield is actively trying to build a similar community in America, but they currently lack the physical infrastructure and the decades of shared cultural weight needed to offer that immediate social integration. This highlights a counterintuitive dynamic. Royal Enfield is significantly cheaper than Harley. In a rational market, that's a clear advantage. But here, it works against them. A low price translates as a compromise, a starter bike ridden until you can afford the real thing. A premium Harley price tag signals the exact opposite. It becomes a public declaration that the rider waited, saved, and refused to settle for anything less than the authentic American dream. This demonstrates how a high price can strengthen a brand when the market is driven by emotion. It punishes competitors who try to win solely on rational affordability. There is a modern caveat to all of this. A younger demographic of riders is starting to evaluate these machines purely on their physical engineering, stripping away the logos, the history, and the baggage. For these buyers, models like the Interceptor 650 are winning genuine attention. They care about the handling, the character, and the actual riding experience, and they are carving out a real space at the edges of the American market. But those edges have not disrupted the core. The broad center of the industry continues to operate exactly as it always has, prioritizing an idea of rebellion and shared identity over raw performance metrics. You cannot bridge a century of established American storytelling with a smoother transmission or a lower sticker price. The mythology is too deeply entrenched in the culture. Harley-Davidson's ongoing dominance proves a harsh reality about consumer psychology. When buyers are forced to choose between a highly capable machine and a deeply powerful myth, they will consistently buy the myth.